Hey there gardeners, I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. Today I am out of my front garden and I've got this crepe myrtle that I am going to put in. This is a Tuscarora crepe myrtle, which is probably about a 15-foot wide by maybe up to 20-foot or so tall crepe myrtle that has these beautiful watermelon, reddish, pinkish blooms. And it's very similar to one that we had at our old house. And I love to have crepe myrtles grow in a tree form. A lot of times you'll by commercial landscapes and stuff, you'll see them cut off at the top. They'll be all knobby. They'll look like somebody's fist or hand that's been shoved up there and all their fingers have been cut off. And they just look kind of weird, and that's called crepe myrtle. So we're going to avoid crepe myrtle with this, and we're going to get this plant started off right by trimming up some of the side growth and training it so that it only has a couple of liters to grow, and it will turn into one of those beautiful tree form crepe myrtles that we love with the exfoliating bark, and it just is a very nice tree to have. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how we're going to prune this to make it get a good start to turn into that tree form. The first step you want to do before you start doing anything is to just examine and plan out what steps you're going to take. When I look down here at the base of the plant, you can tell here I've got two main trunks that are coming out of the pot. Those are probably the two that I'm going to end up keeping. Typically, you'll want between 3 and 5 if you're doing a multi-stem trunk. You may want to just do a single stem trunk, in which case you would cut all of those out. A lot of times in the nursery industry, they will stick multiple cuttings in a pot, and so these may actually be two separate plants in one. So we'll have to figure that out when we start to dig, but I want to keep these two for sure, and I'm debating on this one right here if I want to keep that or not. And just because that would give me a nice 3-stem shoot if I'm doing kind of a multi-trunk pattern, which is kind of what I think I'm going to go for in this circumstance. So let's start off by cleaning up a little bit of what's around here on the base, and I'm just going to cut it, just prune it down around there. And a lot of this material actually can be used for cutting, so I'm going to save some of this. I'm going to put it in a bucket of water to keep until I can actually get them stuck. But a lot of this green growth right here is going to be great cutting material, so we'll make a few extra crepe myrtles off of this one. But I want to go through and I'm just going to clean up all these little side shoots that are along the ones that I'm keeping for sure. And so in this little pot, I've got about 16 cuttings from those side shoots. So we'll see in a few weeks exactly how they are growing. And again, I'll put a link in the description for the Crape Myrtle propagation videos and some of the results videos that I've done in the past on them. So when you're cutting these, be sure to pay attention to which direction those branches are going, because you want to avoid getting cross branches. See, like this one right here, these two branches will go through the other side, and so I'm going to want to eliminate them for sure, because we don't want to initially start with any of that kind of stuff happening. So we'll just clean those out. This branch here is also crossing over the other direction, and we'll clean it up right here like that. And then these look a little bit too low, so we're going to keep them, or take them off actually, and this one here. So we're going to limit up a bit here and there. Now right here, this one is crossing over slightly, but it looks like it's a little bit more, it's far enough away from this one here that we can probably keep that out. What I'm seeing right here is a kind of a Y shape there, and then this trunk here. So I may keep it just like this Y shape, end up with 3 liters coming off of this one instead of keeping this one. But I don't have to make that decision right away. I can do that later. I can keep this one on for now, see how the plant grows for a little bit, and then prune it back in the winter time. And that way I can kind of see the branch structure and how everything is supposed to grow. And I think this is basically how I'm going to leave it for right now as I put it in. I'll make corrective pruning measures along the way just to make sure that I don't have things going kind of out of whack and have crossing branches. This creates kind of a nice open area that's going to reduce a lot of fungal issues and should make it turn into that really nice looking bark that we're going to see. All these little nubs from where the knots and everything were are going to eventually disappear. You won't see them as the trunks get larger, and it'll have some really nice, gorgeous bark all along there. So even though we've had a lot of rain, and we're going to get more rain later today, I'm going to go ahead and water it in. And the main purpose of this is just to make sure that the soil gets nice and compact in there. I mean, we don't want it squished down or anything like that, but we do want to get it so that it's not leaving big air pockets and stuff around the base. Plus, this ensures that the whole root ball is nice and watered. There we go. That's probably good. So, and then I'll just tuck this mulch back in and around. You want to always make sure that you're not covering up the crown of the plant with your mulch. We don't want mulch volcanoes. That's another crime against horticulture, just like crepe myrtle. And as I mentioned before, I've got this little block of wood, and I've been saving this little block of wood for a number of years just for this purpose. You never know when one of those things is going to come in handy. And so I'm going to bring this down here about to where I want these things to start spreading. There we go. And just like that, we should end up with a nice open canopy that kind of pushes this branch over just a little bit. We may have to assist this branch along the way because it's very fresh and young, and so it may need to be kind of tilted a little bit or maybe even staked backward just slightly in order to achieve the location we want it to go in. So now that we've got this planted, the next step is really just to maintain its shape. Okay, we're going to clear off any kind of side shoots that are growing off of it. We're going to want to keep this nice straight leader growing till probably around 5 or 6 feet tall or so. And once those are at that point, we can kind of top them by cutting the tip and allow a couple lateral branches to kind of branch out from that top area. Anytime you get suckers coming from the bottom, you're going to want to cut those off, unless you are wanting to add an additional trunk to the form. Say maybe you started with 3 like we have right here, and maybe you want it to go to 5. So maybe allow 2 more of those shoots to come up and then become trunks. Now the great thing about crepe myrtles is if you are in an area where they are less cold tolerant and they die, they may come back from the ground. So you might start getting some suckers coming back up again. And once they do, you can retrain those back into a tree. However, if you are trying to get rid of a crepe myrtle tree, they often will just keep on coming back. So you may actually have to use some sprays in order to kill one off if they are regrowing, like saying they're in a location that you don't want. Maybe they're planted too close to a house, or maybe you've changed your mind on their location and you want to just start over and start fresh in that spot. So there's definitely ways you can do that, but they are probably going to need some sort of a chemical treatment on the stump in order to effectively stop them from regrowing. Now, a lot of times with crepe myrtles, you will see the roots start to form little shoots somewhat off of there. You can actually propagate those. In fact, I did a video on them last year. You can take a look at that one. But if you don't want those, just prune them back and cover them up and try to keep them from regrowing. That way they don't start taking over and colonizing your whole garden area. So this is where we have it. You can see here the brick wall back behind where the crepe myrtle is. And we've got lots of other plants here in the area that are all full sun plants. This coleus is a full sun variety. We've got a rudbeckia right here. We've got some daylilies. That's primal scream daylily, another one there, and then the coneflowers. Eventually, this tree will overtake and possibly create some extra shade, especially if you look over here. That's a Claricurtis mum. There's some back there, and there's a whole bunch of nutsedge that I need to go pull and remove. But what will eventually happen is I'll probably have to transplant some plants, and that's fine with me. That gives me an opportunity to put in a few other things that might like a little bit more shade than what they're currently getting. I would expect this crepe myrtle to grow at probably about 2 foot per year, maybe more, especially since we're training it as a tree. If you've got more shoots, it's going to, of course, have more areas to send its energy to, and so its overall height is going to be a little bit smaller than as if you had fewer shoots and allowed it to direct that into those main shoots. But we're going to keep this top leader growing for a while to get it some height. And then we'll do the same with those other side shoots. And we may have to do some retraining and corrective pruning from time to time. I'm curious, do you have a crepe myrtle tree that you've planted? And how does it do for you? Where did you plant it? Tell me a little bit about your crepe myrtle tree in the comments if you would. And I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. I really appreciate you watching. If you would, hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks again.